All right, Alexandra, let's talk about the Department of Justice, the FBI, the U.S. government, seizing the Iranian PressTV domain name, and the site that was under that domain name. They also took down 33 other sites that they felt were under the control of Iran, under the Iranian Broadcasting Corporation. And when you logged into PressTV.com, all you were greeted with was a message from the U.S. government saying that the domain has been seized. Now, it's important to point out that they seized the .com domain, the top-level domain, and what Press TV did, the organization, the media channel Press TV, what they did is they just moved everything under the country-level .ir domain. So when you go to presstv.ir, which they control, then you can access the site and the other web properties. But the troubling part about this story is that you have an institution like ICANN, which is the institution that is in charge of managing all the top-level domains, all the international domains, the .coms, the .nets, etc., the .orgs. They are a U.S.-based nonprofit, U.S. incorporated nonprofit, California incorporated. And you can see that the U.S. government can, at any time, take over the domains of this nonprofit, what's supposed to be an impartial international organization. The U.S. government, though, can come in and they can seize those properties and they can take those properties down. This is troubling. It's troubling when you look at other domains. You know, what stops the U.S. government from taking down RT.com? What stops them from taking down BBC? I mean, you know, CBC, any state media channel, you can the U.S. government can seize and they can take down the website of that channel. Once again, they can take the .com domain. What stops the U.S. government from taking your domain, my domain, anybody's domain? They can do that. And then you can branch it out even further and you can incorporate topics like SWIFT. Once again, an international organization. It's supposed to be non-biased. It's supposed to be serving the international community. It's supposed to be apolitical. But you can see that it's anything but. And so this is, once again, a very troubling sign of censorship, but also the government moving in to remove what should be an international apolitical organization's operations.
Absolutely, that's the big story. I mean, can I just say about these 33 sites, I've seen some suggestions that not all of these 33 sites are apparently Iranian controlled. There's even been some suggestions that some of them are anti-Iranian government. I don't know about that. I don't follow them. All I will say is, I didn't think this could be done. Being somebody who was, assumed that these things really were neutral, and the people who run these things really were neutral, I thought that short of an actual war, you wouldn't be able to do something like this. Well, it turns out that you can. The US government has just done it. They've done it, obviously, to sites connected to Iran, irrespective of whether they were pro or Iranian government or not. They can do it, as you correctly say, to anybody else who has, .com as part of their, who uses that kind of structure. And what that is inevitably going to do is it is going to accelerate the breakdown, the bifurcation of the World Wide Web. I mean, it's impossible to see now how it can survive for very much longer. And given how important that was for the US, what a critical element of its soft power that used to be, it seems to be bizarre that the US would want to go down this road. But clearly, they don't want their own, they don't want to allow these alternative voices to appear. They want to shield as much of the world as possible from hearing those voices, and they're prepared to risk the disintegration of the World Wide Web in order to achieve it. It shows, to my mind, how far they're prepared to go, how there are really no restraints on what they're prepared to do, and how we all need to be prepared for the fact that the US government can and will do these things.
Yeah, I mean, you look at big tech censorship, that's one thing, but the fact that the U.S. government is going into, once again, ICANN's operations, and they're taking down, they're seizing .com domain names, top-level domain names, is crazy, especially when you look at an organization like PressTV, Alexander. I mean, just to clarify, PressTV.com, it was the state English language channel for Iran. It is the equivalent of, say, RT for Russia, even the BBC for the UK or CBC for Canada. It's the state media that broadcasts to an international community in English. I'm not knocking PressTV with this statement I'm going to make, but PressTV was a tiny operation when you compared it to the Goliaths of U.S. media and U.S. soft power. When you compared Press TV's reach with CNN and MSNBC and Fox News and BBC and even RT, which is a small channel. RT is not a big media company either, but Press TV was even smaller than that. I mean, why censor an outlet like Press TV when you know that the influence they're having in the English-speaking world is really not that great? It really is not. It just seems like such a weak move. It's censorship out of weakness, it seems, where the U.S. should be doing the opposite. They should be saying, who cares? Let them broadcast. It's not like they're competing with CNN or Fox News. I mean, they're not even probably 1/100th the distribution of a Fox News or a CNN.
Absolutely not. I mean, it's inconceivable that they're even 1/1000th of, Fox News and CNN. I mean, it's, as you rightly said, it's a tiny thing by comparison. And if the US is strong and self-confident, it would let them broadcast and do their thing. And a few people from now and then would go on and listen and watch, but it would have no great impact on opinion in the West. And it does seem bizarre that they would go to these lengths, expose what they're prepared to do with ICANN, risk its viability. Because be absolutely clear, all around the world, people will be watching this. They will be saying, if you have .coms, if you use .com, you're now at risk. The US government can seize your site at any time. So let's start going to other places. Let's go to, internal Russian, Iranian, Chinese ones, or whatever. That's what's going to happen. Because if they're prepared to swat this fly, they're prepared to go after anybody. I mean, it seems astonishing. And I do wonder, actually, whether it isn't, in fact, swatting this particular fly isn't a preparation for going for more people further up the road. I mean, whether the RTs and the CGTNs and those sort of things might not be next in line at some point. But if it is, they've been alerted now that they've got to get themselves ready. And if the Iranians can adjust in a day, which they did, then, be sure that the RTs and the CGTNs and all the rest can do so as well.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing. The China one, CGTN, RT.com, I'm sure they're making preparations now for the eventual day when the U.S. government is going to seize those domains as well. Didn't the UK also balloon trial something like this with, not the domain name, but with Chinese TV? Didn't they ban some of the Chinese broadcasting within the UK? So, I mean, at the end of the day, when you look at all of this stuff, Press TV. So when you look at all this stuff, whether you're dealing with ICANN and the international organization that's supposedly managing domains, whether you're looking at an organization like SWIFT, which is managing a lot of the financial communication, it's all breaking up and it's all disintegrating. Not because of say, CGTN, the Chinese English language, a channel, or Press TV or an RT, but because it seems like the U.S. government, for some strange reason, is afraid or paranoid about these broadcasters, or even SWIFT. They're doing it to themselves out of paranoia more than out of reason and logic, or even just looking at the numbers. Because if I was sitting in the U.S. government, I would be like, guys, there's no reason to go after PressTV.com. Number
Absolutely.
one, they're just going to move it to .ir in a day or two anyway, so it doesn't really accomplish much. Number two, we're going to actually probably give them a lot more press than they've ever had. I mean, they've ever had. And number three, they're small potatoes, they're small fries. And just real quick, Alexander, on a side note, I remember when they were going after RT, that's when RT actually got a ton of free promotion. I remember RT was even gloating about it. We haven't gotten this much free press ever. This is back when they were, trying to get RT off the air, and I forgot. I think that was with Ukraine, and then with Hillary Clinton and Newland, all that stuff. Propaganda, John Kerry propaganda, bullhorn, all that stuff. I mean, RT was absolutely ecstatic at the free press that they were getting.
Absolutely. Can I just say also, of course, the other thing this is going to do is it's going to accelerate technological developments. I mean, with blockchain and all of that coming, it's going to make it even more likely that people are going to press ahead with all of this. But think of the paradox. Just think of the paradox for a moment. Here you have the United States. It's the country that more than any other up to now has promoted globalization with all that involves. It's also promoted, we have an administration which says that it is in favour of all of those things. And yet their desire for control, even in minor things, is working against their grand strategy, because globalization in the way that it was conceived, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, by the people in Davos and all those people, assumed a worldwide net, assumed a certain, a controlled media space from the centre. Well, if they can't even allow small voices, dissident voices like PressTV, to feature on it, then, I mean, they are in effect jeopardising their own globalisation project, because, to be very clear, without the World Wide Web, the whole project fails. Of course it does, because we're going to have different information spaces cropping up everywhere. And as I said, if blockchain comes, well, that's almost beyond their control.
Yeah, well, you already have a lot of the blockchain domains. It just has to be adopted.
Yeah.
So you have the blockchain domain
Exactly.
names, it just has to be adopted. But I think that goes to your point, which is that they want the globalization, but they also want to control things all the way to the micro level. I mean, they want to control things all the way to us and our mobile phones. That's how much control they want. And you can't have the best of both worlds, really. Something is going to seep through the cracks, whether it's a PressTV, whether it's a China English language TV, an RT, or whether it's just, me and you managing to somehow travel or enter a shopping mall without scanning our CUF passport. You know what I mean? You can't control everything, but it's this paranoia that is going to bring this house of cards down, this globalist house of cards
exactly.
down.
That's exactly right. That's exactly why it's going to, in the end, fail, because the obsession with control undermines ultimately the overarching goal. You can't have the two at the same time. You can't achieve that degree of control and at the same time have that necessary element of reach. The two are inconsistent with each other. And of course, with blockchain, I'm confident this is going to develop increasingly, because obviously, I mean, other big players like, RT, CGTN, they can look after themselves, but more and more people will start to look towards blockchain and blockchain domains and all that kind of thing. That the whole structure is going to come tumbling down because it's unviable. If they just left alone, it might have worked, but they couldn't do that. They had to go after the little PressTVs, putting in jeopardy the whole project.
Such a dumb move. Can you touch upon SWIFT? Russia's going to get taken off of SWIFT. I think it's pretty clear. My own personal view is that
perhaps if Russia isn't disconnected from SWIFT, before long it's going to disconnect itself. Now that may sound rather radical, but I think that is where this is going. Actually, they've already worked out that sooner or later they're going to be disconnected. There's been one statement after another about it, and they are very, very busy. They've already set up their own, backstop system, messaging system, but they're building links with other countries, and they're also working very hard to develop blockchain connections. So they are confident that very soon they won't need SWIFT, and at that point, if they're not disconnected already, I think they're going to step outside it. They're going to disconnect themselves, because they don't just worry that through SWIFT, the US, the West is able to, threaten them. But of course, and this is the important point to understand about SWIFT, SWIFT being a messaging service, the West gets an awful lot of information about internal movements of money within Russia. And I think that is something that the Russians are intent to stop. So I think that before very long, give it a year, give it 2 years perhaps, that you'll see Russia stepping out of SWIFT if it hasn't been disconnected already.
Yeah. What's really interesting to wrap up the video is the geopolitics of blockchain and crypto and decentralization. Why do I say that? Because listening to how you were explaining SWIFT, it's like a race against time, isn't it? They're trying to get as much control as possible and hold on to that control. They are going after Bitcoin. They are going after crypto. They're trying to get a hold of the exchanges. While on the flip side, there's a whole nother movement which is pushing as fast as it can to decentralize everything. I mean, they know that the decentralization is going to play against the globalist hands, but it's also going to empower some other countries. I mean, some other countries are going to definitely benefit from the decentralization, especially the financial decentralization.
Exactly. And as you say, it's a race, and it's a race which the globalists will inevitably lose, because they can't control technological developments everywhere. And of course, the steps they are taking give more incentives for countries and people around the world to accelerate the work that they're already doing. If they'd simply sat back and left everything alone, if they'd not bothered to, manipulate currencies, use SWIFT, seize domain names, do all of those things, well, people might have been content to leave things as they are. But that's not what they're prepared to do. So it's a classic example. The more you tighten your fist, the more things slip through. It's a historical truism which some people seem to have forgotten.
Yeah. It makes me not want to buy any more .com domains, that's for sure. Anyway, you say, who can you trust anymore? Who can you trust anymore?
Yeah.
All right. We'll leave it there, guys. Go to our locals. Go to BitChute, ODYSEE, and the free speech video platform, SuperU. But definitely check us out on locals, guys, so you can share your stories with us as well and with the entire community. And go to the Duran shop, 10% off when you use the code Real News, 10% off all magic mugs as well. Take care.